Mr. Robert Bogue is a father, husband, and community leader, a servant with over a dozen years in business, a passionate learner and educator. Robert has editor credit on over 100 books, author credit on 25 books, and numerous courses. Robert is also a recovering technologist with 14 years as a Microsoft MVP. He reads, this is awesome, he reads and reviews a book each week of non-technical topics, distilled the wisdom of many into a set of discovered truths. You can find his discovered truths at discoveredtruths.com. Robert Project teaches every one of his clients' organizations key interpersonal skills through short, engaging videos delivered each week to every employee. You can follow Robert on his blog at thorprojects.com. Please help me welcome Robert to the Spark stage.
I've had enough of scarcity. And my guess is that everyone in this room at one time or another is in the same boat. You've all had that time when things were scarce. And I'm going to start, and I'm going to share a little bit of my story, not because I'm Red Riding Hood or because it's a fairy tale, but because all of you have had the moments like these. Maybe they go by a different name, but they're the same thing. We're all together. We have all felt scarcity. So the timeline I'm going to start you on is December 21st. And I don't know if all of you partied like the world was going to end on the 20th, but the Mayan calendar said, hey, we're going to end. Except it didn't say that. What it said was, we're going to go through another cycle. The Mayans believed in circles and cycles. And people thought, well, this will be the end. But it wasn't the end. It was just change. The change for me on the 21st was divorce. My wife of 15 years filed for divorce, and it told me on the 21st. Now, I have to say, there's a little bit that's good to this, right? You're like, divorce is bad. But you know, all marriages end either in death or divorce, and she chose divorce, so I can be with you. That's not the worst part of the story, though. This actually is just getting us started. As we go a little further, 6 days after the divorce was finalized, I had to kill my best friend. Santana had developed osteosarcoma, bone cancer, and we had managed to manage her pain and keep her comfortable, but then 6 days after the divorce was final, we had to put her down. I had to put her down. And you're like, hey, this is really depressing at this point. This had better be the bottom of the story, but it's not. It's not the bottom of the story because in August of that same year, August 27th, my brother, who was the pilot's pilot, the mechanic's mechanic, knew everything about flying, was killed in a tragic accident from his home airport on a clear sunny day on a mechanical fault that there's no answer for. So right about now, I'm feeling emptiness, right? That's what I've got. I've got the world, the universe seems to be sucking things in, and the fact that it's sucking it in is leaving me not with a black hole, but with black, with nothing. You can't think of scarcity, of that emptiness, of that gap, without getting to black, to nothingness. And when I talk about scarcity, I don't talk about scarcity of money. I don't talk about a scarcity of jobs. I don't talk about homes and cars and all that stuff. I don't talk about it that way Because scarcity isn't about things. It's not about money. It's not about concepts. It's about our relationship with people. And to get you there, to help you get there, I have to go back to 1958. And in 1958, Henry Harlow, and by the way, people that have seen his work, have been in his labs, said that he was not exactly the most compassionate person. He did work on rhesus monkeys. He pulled them away from their parents, and he gave them two options. And he said, this one on the left, you can get a bottle and get food, and on the right, you get terry cloth. You get this opportunity to have some sort of a connection with a creature that looks mostly like your mother. They're monkeys. They're not that smart. So the thing is was Maslow right? Did the monkeys want the milk, or did they want connection? Much to Harlow's surprise, they wanted connection. And the thing is, that's what it is for all of us. We want some sort of a connection. Well, what inhibits this connection? What prevents us from getting to this connection? And I call it a performance-based lie. It's this performance-based love that we have all seen and experienced at one point in our life. The way that this lie goes is like this. If I'm valuable, then I'm loved. If I'm valuable, then I'm loved. So what happens when you lose your job? What happens when you don't make the team? What happens when you're not enough? Well, the problem is you don't feel loved. See, the problem is this is backwards. This is backwards. This scarcity mentality is backwards. What it really is when you're loved, you feel valued. You are valued. The fact that someone else cares. And the crazy part about this is people think it's hard to love. It's actually harder to let people love you, to let that in, to fully experience it, to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I am okay. And this is what protects us from our fear of failure. Everyone in this room has at one point or another stood upon the precipice and said, I'm going to succeed or fail, and we were afraid of that failure. Some of us jumped. Some of us were pushed. But we all ended up at this point where we're afraid. So how do we walk out of this darkness, this scarcity? How do we get from a performance-based love? How do we get from this place that we are to someplace different? Darkness is scary for a reason, right? There's stuff in the darkness. So how do we get out? And I want to start by telling you a story, and you can just shout out if you know who I'm talking about, because it's not just my story, it's everybody's story. This person struggled with depression. She was bankrupt. She had a daughter. She couldn't figure out how to feed her daughter. And her first thought was, I'll write a novel. Now, I have to tell you, that's not my first thought. I'm not going to just go write a novel. I'll go do something different. Maybe I'll be a greeter at Walmart or something, but I'm not going to go write a novel. As it turns out, it worked out really well for her. She happened to write Harry Potter, right? So I'm talking about J.K. Rowling. And I give you this story because as we're trying to navigate our way out of the darkness, out of the scarcity, out of the lack of connection with other people, we need to know that we're not alone. And you may think that GPSs and earthquakes have nothing in common, but they have a lot in common. You see, when somebody has an earthquake, when there's an earthquake happening, we figure out where it started by multiple places timing when it got there. And we measure for propagation delay and all this other stuff. And the same thing happens with GPSs. GPSs know where we are because we know where other things are, these 27 satellites circling the Earth. That's how we know where we are. And so these connections allow us to navigate our way out of the darkness. So, how do we get there? Because I hear a lot of people, they say, well, but I can't get there, and it's not working. I'm trying to get out of the darkness. I'm trying to form new connections. I'm trying to connect with other people. And the problem is, it's not instant. It's not instantaneous to get out of the darkness. You have to be persistent. This is a picture of the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon wasn't formed in a day, a week, a month, year, decade, century. It was formed over a very long period of time. And the stone gave way to the water because it had no choice. The water was not necessarily harder than the stone or more powerful. The water just won because it was persistent. So, what am I telling you? What I'm telling you is that you cannot see around the bend. That Grand Canyon got carved by water. And you will not know whether there's a beautiful rainbow waiting for you, if there's something else beyond that turn, because you cannot see around it. You see, my life is better. My life, I told you about some really awful things. What I didn't tell you is during that time I met my wife and her 6 children that now call me daddy. And that's walking out of the darkness. So I leave you where I began, with enough scarcity. The opposite of scarcity is not abundance. The opposite of scarcity is not having everything you ever dreamed of. The opposite of scarcity is enough, knowing that if you're loved and if you're connected, you're enough.
Timer.